Oh my god. We're about to play Hans Niemann. Let's stay focused. Greetings, chess friends. Today, a very interesting video, and I decided to hop in the Title Tuesday tournament today, July 2nd, 2024, and I started off well. Let's see the first game. It was close, and I noticed a few things. I haven't played this tournament in a while, but there always seems to be a chaotic moment with the 3+1 time control. You really don't build up too much time. So let's see. I was black in this game playing International Master representing Germany, and things are pretty messy. I'm down a pawn. I have a little initiative. In general, white should be better, but it's a messy position. A trade of rooks here, and nice moment here where I could have put in between a move like queen b6 or queen a7 and just pinned that rook to the king. Would have been interesting. But instead we captured. Notice below I put the times here as they're very relevant to what's going on in the position. But again, a big mess. Now this e-pawn, which actually ends up winning the game for me, is there. Also, white has an advanced pawn. Unlikely to queen, but this one is more a danger to my king. So we really need to be alert. Queen f5, no real way to infiltrate. Notice the rook is guarding that square. Here, rook c3, not sure what I was thinking with that move. Really, in hindsight, should push the pawn with the discovered check. Although not deadly, it's an important step. Rook c3, now we do play d3. e5, and d2. Not a good move, but not for an easy reason to understand. You cannot capture this pawn as rook c1 check, and this is going to force the king out into a very, very precarious position. Here, we need to find one of two checks, probably rook c3, and the best move, queen e3, are both sufficient, picking up the rook. Okay, so that did not happen, but d2, what is the best move? Queen d7. Not an easy move to spot if you're thinking about this pawn. Maybe it is easy to spot if you're looking for checkmate, though. So that was definitely findable. But queen e4, and I think that is really the final mistake. Rook c1, which unfortunately allows a perpetual. This queen a8, queen back to e4 perpetual is unavoidable. And he could have done that right here. Instead, queen f3, and that really seals the game. Again, notice the times were both on seconds. Queen d4, the cleanest way was certainly to play rook takes rook and queen e3. This is not going to last long, but I, again, was just panicking and played queen d4. And a little more shenanigans here, then we finally take queen f4. And no matter what, we're getting our queen to this e1 square by force. So check. And he plays on here some stalemate possibilities, but not really. Okay, and that's checkmate. Wow, first game win. And when you win the first game, which is difficult for a player of my level, then you often get paired way up. And I come back to the game, and we have Hans Niemann waiting for us. Let's see. And I just want to touch on one thing really quickly. I'm not usually one to get into the politics and drama of chess, but this was an exciting moment, playing obviously a very strong, notable player. And I did want to just mention, this is the goal for a player of my level, the NM title, to play in Title Tuesday. I'm not going to win the tournament ever. I'm never going to win any money or anything. It doesn't matter. The point for me is to play one of the top guys. So this is exactly the moment. Let's jump into it now. Sicilian, C3 Sicilian, this Alapin, which I have some familiarity with. I did get into a bit of an uncomfortable situation, so let's see why and how. We took back with the bishop. I always thought this was nice and comfortable, but somehow with these pawns usually being on open files, they are not super strong, the so-called hanging pawns structure. But when the moment arrived here, I was actually a little nervous and didn't really like the feel of the move castles. And so I played queen a5, which doesn't look to be the best. Castles, I was concerned due to the very classic sacrifice here. Bishop takes h7, king takes, knight g5, but the trick here is your king has to come out, which is a very common idea. It's easy when your back is against the wall, you're getting mated. But here, the game is not easy for white either. They are a piece down. Engine giving moves like h4, queen f3, rook b1. Not conclusive. So that would have been really interesting. But that's really what I was afraid of. So here instead played queen a5, which does threaten the pawn, but more really I understood my queen was probably going to ship over to the king's side at some point. Bishop d2, bishop d7, and you can see by the timestamps that I started to slow down right here. 20 seconds on this move, and I was not comfortable. Interesting move I didn't really consider was e5. Very natural move. Frees this bishop. We have it guarded by 3 pieces, so e5 really probably was the way here. Bishop d7, castles, and again, I'm nervous to castle. Here, really unprofessional of me, because castles, it's easy to see now after takes knight g5. We can even just retreat because of our queen. This is the typical Greek gift, but our queen can shuttle over to f5, guarding the checkmate, and white is now winning, a minor piece ahead, a bishop ahead. So that was not really reality, and I was kind of seeing ghosts just playing a strong player. So knight e7, rook b1, b6, a mistake, but a move which felt very sensible to me. c4, that hits my queen. And as we really kind of assumed earlier, queen shuttles over to h5, rook e1, and now we can castle safely. So it took a little long there, but I think we have a good situation. White is slightly better. Rook e4. Look at that move. Very aggressive, which is headed for h4, and he's just going for the knockout. I pretty quickly here replied f5, and I was conscious of the time, but when you're playing the strong players, it's so hard to keep up the pace. Sometimes the moves I can keep up, but then I'm always down on time, hence the problem. So rook e1. Really no sense, and here a good, probably mature move. No sense in playing rook h4. Of course, our queen will move. Your bishop is now kind of blunted by this pawn, knight, bishop. Everybody's guarding that, very secure. And the rook out here is very likely to get trapped. Knight g6, for example. Rooks get trapped easily. So really just inducing me to play f5 and then retreating back. Bishop c6, and all of a sudden I felt like maybe we can have a chance. I've played so many strong players in a number of upsets, and you can feel how it happens. Bishop taking there. Notice the connection here on h2. We just have to remove the knight, and this threat comes with hitting the queen. So it's very scary. Hans plays rook e6. Bishop takes f3. Queen takes f3. And here, again, I had an interesting decision to make of just capturing his queen. I thought was a reality, possible, but really his position is too healthy. This rook too strong, and I thought I don't get this opportunity too much. Queen takes h2 is such a scary attacking classic move. I just felt like we got to go this way. King f1, the only move, and here I was really dreaming. Of course, the bishop guards this rook, so this check really doesn't produce much. I did think of the move which Engine gives his best, rook a e8. I really did consider this. And now you can feel the pressure on these squares combined with queen h1, move like g3 very likely to come. Very interesting. Instead, I played knight g6. That also is thinking about a move like rook e8. It's thinking about moves like knight h4. Just keep in mind this bishop and queen are connected, so that is safe. Queen d5 would be a really cold-blooded move. The Engine just says lights out. But Hans played queen h3 and really forced a queen trade. Bishop f4, again, played quickly here. You can see I'm down a minute, but that's the best I can do. But the position is still close. Rook d8. If we could grab this pawn, that would be a dream. This pawn also hanging. Knight h4. I really did panic here, and you can see it in the time. 20 seconds used on this move is far too much. I was dreaming how to get this bishop out of the way and a move like knight f4, but it's just too much. This pawn is hanging. You don't want to play a move like a5, as this pawn will surely be taken eventually, and perhaps maybe just rook a c8 was the best. Now, if you lose this pawn, I take this one, and black is still kicking here. But we played instead. Knight h4, and we fight on, but the game is really decided here at bishop e7. Knight f3. We're squirming here, but it's really not enough. Captures material equal. Okay, material is equal. Now this pawn is hanging. But instead he plays d6. What's important? d6, d7, d8. King f7. Now bishop f5. White is pawn ahead. Back to equal. If you had told me when I woke up this morning that I would have equal material in an endgame, complex position with under 2 minutes each against Hans Niemann, I would have thought you were nuts. But here we are. So bishop to h4, another very good move. And he just really coordinated with these bishops and passed pawn and rook very, very well. You could feel the quick understanding. So you can feel by the speed of the moves usually. But rook takes h7, and a move he played just instantly. A great move, and again, the point is that my rook is hanging in the corner here, so white is completely winning. King g8, that took almost all of my time to play. I just knew this was over, but it was squirming. Bishop e6, again, feels messy, but all roads lead to white winning. Rook takes d8, and here I resigned. An exciting game, one that I'll remember fondly, but again, just way too much. So I think we had some interesting chances, but maybe the game really turned around these moments here. So bishop c6, maybe not the best way to go, surprisingly, and rook e6 kind of set us down this path that there was no coming back. Otherwise, white is now a clean central pawn ahead. Okay, a couple more fun moments from the tournament, as we did score some interesting wins and losses. But here, we missed a tactic that would have won against a GM, an easy tactic. But again, take a look at the timestamps, a painful one here. Knight e4, down to 1 second. Queen d4, and that is not a blunder for the reason you're thinking. I cannot capture that as rook comes all the way down to c8, and that will be a checkmate in a moment. Here, the winning move is really not that hard, and if I had more than a second, I would have found it. I just slammed down queen e2. I have 1 second left. That means I must have made it with just fraction. But had we even gone one step further, the winning move was queen f1. Not that hard to spot when you realize their queen is hanging, but for the rook checkmating us, and queen f1 distracts that rook. The only legal move is to take. We retake, promote. The only legal move is to take. And guess what? It's our turn with the rook hanging. These moves would have all come in a flurry. And the question would have been, could I win this one against a GM? I think it's very easily winning. Just can I do it in the time pressure? So would have been a fun opportunity, a nearly 3,000 rated player. But credit to him for really playing well and deservingly winning. Last one here in this game is a complete tornado after the move f4. You ever see those movies where the tornadoes going around, Twister or something, and there's just barns flying around, animals, cars flying through the air? I mean, that's what this game felt like. So check this out. f4, and I knew this was coming. There's no other move with his knight. Every square is occupied or covered. So knight g3 captures, and I actually expected bishop e5. These games are difficult, and I feel like I've probably fallen for this trap before. Bishop e5, and really, with a piece down, black has good play. But he took the rook, and I thought here, all of a sudden, with the move e6, we could throw a little wrench in the gears. We're going to lose that pawn anyway. But he kept going for these counter strikes. The thought was this knight really didn't have a great square. I guess it does just have g3, which is what he did. I was expecting here f takes, and then perhaps d takes, and then retake the knight. But he just moves the knight immediately, and I think the pieces get a little clumsy for black after capture. And just bishop f4. Engine preferred here queen d3, queen e1, just bothering this knight. A scary position, but I thought bishop f4 was logical. Bishop c3. The point of this move is he's trying to take this pawn, right? The knight was the only defender. Notice the rook here and knight combine. But after takes, I don't have to take that. In fact, we can take the knight, which I thought got me a lot safer. This position is a complete mess. Material hard to even count right now. Let's give him this pawn, and then we're going to pause here and count up the material. Again, the best way to count material is just talk about the extras. Black has an extra rook, more than white. Black also has 3. Let's just highlight which ones. 3 extra pawns. Maybe you can count the C pawn. I don't know if I'd like that. 3 extra pawns and a rook. So that's 8. White has an extra bishop and knight. Bishop and knight. So that is in favor of black. But the dynamic features are interesting. White's king has gotten a lot safer than it was. We can tuck our king over here. Should be able to find shelter. After the next move, though, I think the game just becomes positionally very tough for black. Knight c4. I thought this was a creative way. Giving the material, I think, we learned from an early age, these squares can be very vulnerable. And if you lose this bishop, you don't have anyone to guard them. You tempt the other person. I said, come on, just take it. And you see here, he thought for quite a while, over 20 seconds to think about. He didn't take it. I moved the king to safety. And then another minute goes by and he does take it and we snap back. Look at the clock times right here. A little over 2 minutes for black. And now he is under 50 seconds, where our time is still close to 2 minutes. That really makes navigating this so much more difficult. What is going on in the game, though? The king is very safe now, for the most part. Rook e2 doesn't feel like it, but at least we have protection. This pawn is hanging. Knight b6 was possible. And again, the dark squares around the king are ripe for attack. We need to land the knight in here, and it would be lights out. How to navigate our knight into that? Well, maybe not the best starting move. Knight takes d6. But I did get some more material back in our pocket. Queen e7, a good move. Queen c3, that move took quite a while to play. Notice 148 down to 110. Too much time for sure in this mess, but at least it was a good move. Rook d8 and another pawn in our pocket. I love picking up those pawns in a useful way because every pawn counts. All of a sudden, material is 2 pawns and a rook for our 2 pieces. Remember, it was more. Queen e3, and here's the key moment. My initial instinct was queen c7, threatening the rook, threatening the pawn on f7, but it gets very scary around the king. Maybe he would just play a move like rook f8, but of course, queen f3 is looming at any moment. So I decided to play queen takes queen. The best move, happy to see that. And then here, interestingly, I played knight b7. Who wouldn't? But that's not the best move. These bishops are so hard to fight against, and a great example of the dominating bishop pair in the endgame. Believe it or not, the best move was just not capturing and playing knight e4. This, again, kind of eyeing the f6 square, but more importantly, we're just able to get this pawn marching and marching and marching. But moves like bishop e5 and knight f6 could be also very scary. The pawn is going to be escorted by the bishops. Black is a long way from making any pass pawns. But instead I played knight b7, d6, again supported, and knight c5, which hits this one also, and all of a sudden material could be close to equal here if we grab another pawn. First, though, the threat of rook to e2 is really scary. So I played king g1, maybe not the best move, but did what we were trying to do. Rook e2, and I think here, again, notice the time, 7 seconds for my opponent. Maybe he was hoping for bishop f3, which walks right into checkmate, but I played bishop f1 here, even though it took about 10 seconds, an important move. Engine gives equal with rook d1 as the best move. My opponent played rook e3, and bishop f4 picks up plenty of material. All the advantages remain. The A pawn is doomed. The D pawn's still alive. And this game is over. He does sacrifice for it here, actually. And now white wins. Black resigns. Wow. A really exciting tournament, which I just kind of decided to play on a whim and felt really good. Even after the first game, I could tell I came to play. Exciting game against Hans, and another GM had my chances. So really pleased with the result. Tell me what y'all think about the different type of lesson, analysis, real games. Hope that was interesting, and we'll keep rolling with some chess lessons after this. Thanks again.